All right. Episode 28 of the Long Haul Podcast. I am, as always, super excited to be talking a bit about artifacts. And how are you doing, Carrie, my man?
Hey man, doing okay. Been working a lot. It's kind of weird that we're supposed to stay home, and the more I stay home, the more I work, which I didn't expect that to happen, but it seems to be a pattern.
Well, I can't say the same, but I'm still working, so it's not all bad. But on the other hand, though, at least Valve is giving us some food for thought. Once again, we get a Moon Day post. This time around, a bit juicier than last time. I feel like it's getting juicier and juicier. Like this is kind of unexpected. I didn't expect them to be throwing stuff at us every week. Do you think there's a pattern here?
I think I don't want to say officially, but I guess they turned moon days into really cool days now.
Yeah. So yeah, they as everyone knows by now 100%, there's a new post April 6th, looking forward, looking back, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this, and we've also got some other spicy news on other fronts. But yeah, man, I think instead of going through and reading the whole thing descriptively, let's just talk about the notes overall. Like, what were your main impressions from this communication this week?
Okay, my main impression is someone at Valve has serious sick painting skills.
Yeah, that's clear. I love the little piranha on his hand, on the ogre's hand, in the
So
post
good.
title. But yeah, for reals though, I feel like way more descriptive, way more like a proper post. Last week it felt like a memo or an email that you would write to someone else, so way more casual. This time around I felt like it's a little more structured, the communication. But I think main, like, big picture ideas here. They want to pass the idea that they really love the game, and they're all in it for different reasons, but they all really want to come together and work to make the game something special and something that we can also enjoy in the future. So main point from the first paragraphs, basically, I felt like was like they are super happy that they have gotten a lot of feedback, and they want more of that feedback, and specifically this time around they deliver us an email. So I think basically Gaben is just sick of getting random emails from people talking about artifacts. Probably said, dudes, make a new email because my spam folder's too big.
Okay, so this is a double-edged knife right here, because it kind of hurts and it feels that they actually say, oh, we're so happy that we got feedback and now we want more. Because for months we bombed them with feedback and we got like zero feedback, zero replies. We asked, like, we ourselves sent like dozens of emails to devs, and actually one or two gave us feedback, but always like, oh, I can't talk about it. Oh, you guys keep going. It's nice to know that someone still likes the game. And then we just get stuff like this, like, when you fuck up really bad, and the next day you just act like nothing happened. That's just like this. This feels like that.
I don't know, man. I think they've been entertained with other stuff, and now it's like now they're properly sitting down and trying to figure out what to do here. So at the same time, even though we had this huge stretch where it felt really bad, at the same time, it went relatively slow. It could have gone faster, but it's behind us now. It's water under the bridge. So I'm right now. My outlook is becoming. My general outlook on Artifact 2 is kind of becoming more optimistic, because I think that these posts show that they are going in the right direction. Now we'll talk more about the gameplay aspect, because I'm still not exactly sure what to think. We don't have enough information, but at least from this side, yeah, I already yesterday I sat down. I didn't have to go to work, so I outlined a little email draft this morning. I composed it a little bit better, and I'm just it felt nice writing them an email. You know, like it's just it was a good feeling. Like okay, there's the
You
official
waited.
address.
You waited for months for this. It's like giving you candy.
Yeah, I'm really happy about this. I really am. Now, I don't expect them to answer me because I'm sure they will be getting thousands of emails, and my email is probably larger than average. But I'm just happy to know that they are reading it, and we've already seen on Reddit that they are answering some people. So there is acknowledgement that they are reading these things, and kind of if nothing else, they're reading it. Like probably, of course, they cannot please everyone, and they'll have to ignore most of what we want or what we say. But it's good to know that if nothing else, they took a minute to read that. So I feel like that's really good. And again, just to reinforce this idea that I think they are going in the right direction.
Yeah, don't get me wrong on my statement. I'm actually pretty happy that they're talking to people right now, and for all the ones that waited this long, like we all did. If you're probably listening to us right now, you're one of the few remaining long haulers. It's really nice that we. I think we can say that people who fought for the game until now deserve this type of
Yeah.
treatment. You know, getting heard, getting replies, even if the feedback that you get is not exactly the one you wanted, because they're replying to people, but they're still replying in ways that they're not revealing the information that we would like to. But this is pretty cool that we had to wait a year and a half almost for it, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know, specifically to actually address that, and again, we've talked about this numerous times, obviously in the Discord, on Twitter, on Reddit, on the podcast, and it ties really into that, and they address that this for the first time, that they want to reward, in their words, the founding players of Artifacts, the people who played extensively and built a collection in the original game. They want to discuss options and ideas to compensate these people. So they say there's some great ideas floating around for things that they can add, and that will probably mesh well with their own ideas. So yeah, I mean, just to quote, we want to make sure that there are some incredibly cool and special things that we deliver to our founders, but we aren't ready to implement them just yet. It's okay, the game is probably in a very rudimentary phase right now. What is important is that they are considering that. Do you think they will close down 1.1, or what is your... We kind of already talked about this a little bit, but how do you see this, like from the perspective of closing down 1.1 and people kind of, you know, their cards disappearing into thin air?
That's a touchy subject. I never thought about it that way. We talked, I think, in the last episode and even outside the episode. I expect that they're doing a different executable for the beta, because it's gonna require changes in the way the game works, and they don't want to affect people who still play 1.0. Seeing the changes that they did from this post, last episode, I thought they would just, update the client once the beta was over, and we'd have just one single game. After seeing the changes, some doubts come to my mind if they would do that, because the changes are from the stat crunching and the different mechanics, people losing cards that already had. I don't know. It's that's a tough decision. I think it might happen that they might just update the game, and what will be will be. But I didn't actually think, how would you feel if you paid, like, I don't know, $15 for, as example, for 3 Annihilations, for example, and then they decided to remove Annihilations from the game. I don't know, for example. That would be really bad. On the other hand, if Artifact 2.0 comes out, if you want to call it 2.0, right? I don't know if people would still want to play the 1.0 when like the majority of the community will start playing 2.0.
I personally think that it doesn't make sense to keep both. It really doesn't make sense to keep both around. But of course, it will then depend whether they implement workshop, because if they do implement workshop and mods and things like that, so they could potentially even just have a mod inside 2.0 to allow people to play 1.0. But the fact is, so the new version will be free to play, right? They already admitted to that. You cannot buy or sell cards. So if they're going to just shut down 1.1, which I personally believe they probably should, I don't see the reason to keep it around, even though I love the game. I really don't think it makes, from a business standpoint, it doesn't really make much sense for the amount of people that play it. Basically, I think the rewards have to be really good. Now, I don't expect that they are going to be refunding money to people for multiple reasons. But I think if they compensate that with really cool in-game rewards or some kind of a premium battle pass, whatever, something that people can actually relate to and maybe feel like it's worth money, or even maybe giving them items that they can then trade in Steam, even though there won't be a card market, people could potentially just trade items, or they could even just actually ship out to people like a real trophy type thing, like for example in Dota, when I don't know, because I have never spent much money for TI, but if you buy the battle pass for TI, for example, if you spend some absurd amount of money, you will get like a little Aegis at home. You'll get like a real life shield of the Aegis that you can hang on the wall, for example. So
Stop.
Yeah.
Don't. Let's not do that, because we live in Europe, and if they want to send us stuff from the USA, that's not going to work well.
Well, they have done that for Dota, was the point.
No, bad idea. No.
I think it's unlikely. I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's unlikely. I'm just saying, like, there's ways to compensate people. I've spent money in the game. I think all the money that I've spent in the game was well spent, because I've enjoyed my 1,000 whatever hours in the game, so it doesn't really matter to me personally. But it is something that keeps popping up in discussions on the Discord and on Reddit, etc. So it does become interesting, because some people have really like high expectations, and it makes you then wonder, because they say that they are discussing some incredibly cool special things to deliver to founders. Also notice that founders is the first time that they use the word founders, and founders is generally something that is used like for really like if you're a founder of something, you're like one of the cool boys or something, you're like in the you're like elite or something. So it sounds special. I don't know, it's just a gut feeling. It's a special word to use.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a nice term. Let's call it. Let's leave it at that. I know of a game that I've played from the start where I'm considered a founder, and all I got was a shitty badge to wear on my arm when I run around the game.
Is it Path of Exile, or what is it?
Whoop-de-doo. No, it's not Path of Exile.
Okay.
It's a game which I will not say, Warframe. And the thing is, Captain P says, so it doesn't depend on the amount spent per game for cards. For me, it doesn't really matter, man. Look, you might have spent $500 because you wanted to buy tons of axes because you wanted to invest in Axe coin, and I just spent $40 and got my collection. I don't think people should be rewarded if they spent $300 in the game or $20 in different ways. If you play the game when it was in a hard place, when it came out, and you showed that you liked the game and you wanted the game to succeed, everyone should get the same thing. I don't think the amount of money that you spend should be considered by any means on what you get for playing Artifact 2.0. To me, I'd like it, whatever they give us, if they give us, which is not yet decided, of course. If it's just something that it's not attainable in the game, okay? Whatever they give us, if they give us, just make it something that it's not attainable in the game. Something that when you see a person playing the game, or if you play the game and it's like a cosmetic or something, it makes you feel like, okay, I have this because I played this from the start, and I supported the game from the start. So when you look at someone with that icon or with that something, whatever, you know, this guy plays the game for a long, long time. He's a founder, whatever you want to call it. So, in my opinion, if they like transform uh, being a founder into, oh, here you spent $300, so have 300 of this currency, whatever. I don't. First of all, I don't think that's cool. And if you spent money on a game at the time, it wasn't because you wanted, now you want more cosmetics or something. You just want recognition. At least that's how I see it. Maybe I'm naive, but I would rather have something that distinguishes me from the new players than having more currency to buy whatever. But that's just me.
But to maybe touch on Captain P's question more particularly, in my view, if you had cards and you've sold those cards before, I really cannot understand why you would want to have compensation for something that you sold, because if you sold, you got money back for it. I think the question here would be, if they shut down the game and therefore those cards disappear, then the question is raised, technically the way that digital products work is that you don't actually own any of these things. You just pay the company to have that thing in your account. But like, technically speaking, in the terms of agreement type things, if Hearthstone would close tomorrow, they would not have to pay anyone for anything, because you don't own anything. That's the way that card games work. That's just technically. Now, in practice, I don't know, man. I think this is I think personally,
Yeah,
I think it's better not to have big expectations here in terms of money, more maybe in terms
it
of
doesn't.
swag or
I don't.
whatever. But
Yeah, but if you own a company, you know this is not how things work. So them giving us anything at all is more like a recognition of a thank you for being someone that supported us from the start.
yeah,
And no one has any rights to anything. You pay the game, you play the game. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you enjoy a meal, like you pay for the meal and that's it. This is It's not exactly the same, right? But you pay the
yeah,
game, you play the game, you enjoy the game, you supported the game, and now they're giving us a thank you for being supported. That's how I see it. Like I said, the only thing I would enjoy would be whatever they give us, if they actually give us something. It's just something that distinguishes you, so that people can see, okay, this guy has been playing this for a long time, or he's a whatever. Make it an impact, make it a goddamn
hmm,
special card cosmetic, whatever you want to call it. Just something that when you play it, or when someone actually sees you play, or sees your avatar, your imp wearing like a funny hat, they know you're a long time supporter or something. Just don't make it obtainable right now for anyone who
yeah,
starts playing the game. That would be like kill the thing for
yeah.
me.
So the really meaty part of this post really is then the cards that I suppose most people have seen, and this is where kind of the real discussion begins here, because there's a lot of things that kind of digest and discuss from here. Main thing I think here, of the entire post, probably one of the main points here is actually that they admit that stats overall have been scaled to around 60% of the original game. So what this means is, if you would have a 10-10 hero, he would be a 6-6. So they've scaled. It says stats overall. Okay, we don't exactly know. Does this mean everything? Does this include the towers? Does this include the mana? Does this include? Yeah, I mean, we've already seen that it does include the heroes and it does include the creeps.
I'm curious about armor. None of the cards that they showed has armor.
Yeah, and how do you scale down 60% in terms of armor is also kind of, well, probably just have to go 50% down in most cases. And then, yeah, this raises so many questions. Cards like Ignite, for example, that only deal 1 damage. I mean, you can't go down to 0, and it's a indirect buff, because 1 damage will be way more than it was before. So they probably have to make the card more expensive or something. So this really, yeah, it's just one of these points that is basically huge. And to me, the first thing that jumps to my eyes as well is that it is very strange for someone who's played the game for a long time to look at these heroes and look at their stats. It feels at first sight, at first assessment, it feels like they're really, really tiny, right? I mean, Mirana is a 4/4. Super cool art, by the way. Placeholder art, please keep it. It's amazing.
Exactly.
You should give it as a reward, by the way. So let's have a look at Mirana. Mirana is a black hero, 4/4, no armor, one ability, leap. It's an active with a 3 round cooldown and 1 mana. This is the first time ever that abilities cost mana, by the way. Active ability, move Mirana to an adjacent lane. Give Mirana and new neighbors +2 attack this round. So adjacent lane, all right? So you cannot jump across 2 lanes. And then his card, which they admit to probably being a bit too powerful right now, is Sacred Arrow. So her iconic Dota ability costs 4 mana. It's a spell. Choose caster, deal 2 to a unit in any lane, +1 per lane traveled from the caster. Stun if it's a hero, slay if it's a creep, and it's a cross-lane spell. It's also the first time that we've ever seen a spell being described as cross-lane. So, what are your thoughts, dude? What's your impression on this?
Okay, so if you look at the base game, as we know right now, black is the second highest stat cards. I mean, you look at Bounty Hunter 7/7 and Sorlas has a 7/4, 7/5. Okay, yeah. So if this is a 4/4, it means that they skilled it at 60%, and then doing 44 damage if you go for all the lanes. That's probably going to kill any blue hero, mostly green heroes, and some black heroes. Red's probably gonna survive it. I think the problem is if you're allowed to choose the target. I mean, you choose caster instead of choose target.
Yeah, no. So basically, right? I think the way it is choose caster. You choose a black hero, and then you'll have to choose the target as well. So
but why do you need to choose the black hero?
Because you can throw Sacred Arrow from another black hero that isn't Mirana. So if you're playing Mirana and Phantom Assassin, for example, you can throw the arrow from Phantom Assassin.
What's the point? I mean, if you look at Tinker, a Tinker has a signature card where you can play it sit in any lane, and it doesn't tell you to choose a caster.
Well, it's an improvement, right? So, for example, well, it's not a great example because Relentless Pursuit chooses a random hero in the lane. But the fact is we haven't really seen a spell like this before. But if you're playing 3 black heroes, then you need to choose which black hero casts it, right? So for the same, in a similar example, if you're playing Mirana and Mirana dies, and you still have Lich or PA, you can choose which black hero to throw it from.
Yeah. So I feel the card will be okay if you don't get to choose the target. I know it's going to suck because that will mean RNG. And bless you. I just think that if you get to choose and you get to do 4 damage, I know you got cards right now that actually do that, but let's look at, for example, if you look at Mirana has 4 stats, which means you're going to do damage almost enough to kill any non-red hero, if we take this in consideration. So if you get to choose something like that, let's look at Sniper's signature card where he does like 10 damage and normally kills any hero that isn't black or super buffed by items. So if you get to choose something like this for 4 mana, that looks broken. But if you don't get to choose your target, because if you play Dota, let's look at Dota. You throw the arrow. You don't get to choose. You can aim at the lane or at the place that you want to throw it, but you don't get to choose who you want to.
But it says deal 2 to a unit in any lane, so you can choose the target. I don't think that's the question. If basically this card seems great to me because you already had Slay. Slay would cost 3 mana and kill a creep, right? This is basically Slay. At the very worst, this is a Slay that can cross any lane. So you can kill any creep in any lane with this card. Amazing. And then
No, I know that's not the point. I'm just saying whoever wrote the post says it feels overpowered right now. And what I'm saying is I don't think it will be as overpowered if you don't get to choose where it lands.
Okay. No, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear that you can choose. This card seems great to me. Again, like you said, 2 damage. So we had, for example, Pickoff was dealing 4 damage for 4 mana in any lane, and Slay was killing a creep in the specific lane where you would play it would kill a creep. So just in comparison to those spells, this already seems pretty good. Considering that all the stats are going down to 60%, this would be on rate with a Pickoff. Plus you add damage per lane. So this card seems really, really good. Really,
and you also stun if it's a hero, which
and
is
you
like
also stun. Yeah, so
you just lock someone out of a color if you play on 1.0. They say they want to avoid people being locked out of lanes, so we don't.
Now, I will say it looks to me like the symbol on the cards is a rare symbol, but since the game will be free to play and you can't pay cards, I'm assuming there's no rarity. Unless they keep rarity for draft. So this is also something maybe to touch on. It's not really clear exactly what that means.
My cat keeps invading my privacy.
So yeah, I think overall Mirana is looking like a really good card. Yeah, the thing of the stats is right now the main thing. It's really hard to know how to assess these things, and without knowing whether the towers come down to 20 or 25 or 30, it becomes difficult to say. Now the other thing that I would mention also is if the towers do go down in scale to the heroes, I wonder what that makes to the pace of the game, if the game is going to be slightly faster with all the other rule changes that are happening at the same time. It's becoming, as we get more information, but it's becoming kind of harder to predict exactly how the game is going to turn out. So, I think at the end, until we actually play it, it's going to be difficult to say. But it is also one of the concerns of many long haulers I've spoken to, is that if the game becomes too fast and too dumbed down, people are afraid that it will lose its
essence.
Its essence, its oomph, like you said when you spoke to Garfield last year. And that's also to me a concern. Like, I don't know how to assess it. And right now my stance is to be optimistic and trust Valve in that they will keep the essence of the game, but it's becoming harder to assess that.
Okay, I don't think they're gonna dumb down, at least from what they showed us. It doesn't point to that. So, and that I at least feel that we're not gonna get a dumbed down version. I expect the games to be much faster, because if stuff is easier to kill and remove from the table, games should eventually be faster.
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing that I've looked at the cards that they showed and kind of leaves me, I don't want to say sad, but a bit disappointed, is I actually expected and hoped that heroes would start having more than one just ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish they had like one active ability and one passive ability plus the 3 signature cards.
Yeah, I really wanted to touch on that as well, so I'm happy that you say that.
Yeah, that's one thing. God damn it! I just really wanted heroes to have more abilities, because that would have given much more flair to the game.
Exactly, it would make it look similar to Dota as well, right? It would make, it would just be more of a Dota feeling where heroes don't just play their abilities if you draw the card or once every 3 turns. Rather, it would make the heroes kind of more dynamic and flashier, like in Dota potentially. Probably harder to balance as well, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know how they are treating this new set that they are doing, because one of my theories was always that some of the cards in 1.0 were bland, and some of the A lot of the abilities were kind of simple and bland because they wanted to ease people into the game with the core set type mentality, because the game was strategically very deep, and because of this they didn't want the cards to be overly complicated. This is my take. I know people don't agree, or a lot of people don't agree with that, but now I wonder if they will lean towards doing the same for 2.0, where maybe they will try to make the heroes simpler. That said, when you look at Mirana, it doesn't look like the simplest hero that I've seen, right? I mean, it's way
She
more.
looks like a fun hero.
She looks like a really fun and dynamic hero in comparison to other heroes, like the basic heroes from Call to Arms. So I don't know, but I do agree. I do really agree that it would be super cool to have like a passive and one spell or one ability that would refresh fast, and one that would refresh really slow, maybe like vary the cooldowns according to the power of the abilities. But I also do still think, like I did for 1.0, that this is something that card games can always change over time, right? I mean, and yeah, I mean, like in Magic, where power creep happened over the years.
Yeah,
That's also
that's the
something
big
that can
issue.
happen.
The big issue will be power creep, because if the next set has heroes with 2 abilities, why would you even want to use heroes with 1 ability? Unless they're like very bland secondary abilities, and that's not fun at all.
Yeah, it would all depend on how the game is going to play out. It's really difficult to predict. For sure, you want to have heroes kind of balanced throughout and not have 5 heroes or 6 that stand out from all the rest. But it's like in Dota. If everything is overpowered, nothing is overpowered, and that's always been something that Ice Frog has done in Dota, is just buff. Like, don't try to nerf everything to keep everything down. Just try to buff everything and make everything completely bonkers, because if everything's bonkers, everything's balanced.
Yeah, that's like player mentality, right? Everyone likes to feel overpowered. No one likes to feel weak. So people will be more receptive to seeing like 10 cards getting buffed to the point where they're as good as the rest, instead of seeing like other 20 cards being nerfed to be like balanced compared to the other cards that weren't as good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like player mentality. Everything being overpowered, nothing is overpowered, and everyone has fun.
Yeah, let's see. So moving on to Wraith King, they say that he looks like a fragile green hero. If we would apply the 60% thing to him, he'd probably be like a 6/5 or something like that. Which for a green hero would be pretty poor, but since he's got a passive that gives him a death shield, he actually becomes quite tanky. And besides that, the death shield also heals him to full, gives enemies -2 damage or power for their next combat. So it looks like a very tanky card. His spell Hellfire Blast stuns a unit and gives it decay. Decay is like reverse regeneration. It's basically Viper's card, but except that it doesn't deal damage in the upkeep. It deals damage in combat, like regeneration would do, sort of. So basically looks like a solid defense hero. It does have the same attack as Mirana, but now I don't know how to interpret that.
You see, I looking at Wraith King, there's 2 things that come to my mind. First thing is, I always imagined he would be black. Mm-hmm. Okay. Second thing is, we noticed they're doing a revamp on the game, so I actually expected if they'd go this deep, that they would remove black. We've talked about this in other episodes and in our chats on the Discord, that you look at Dota, there's like agility, intellect, strength. There's a trinity. You look at the symbol from Artifact, it's a trinity. You expect blue, red, and green. You never expect black. And why have Wraith King green and not black if you're not getting black out of the game? But okay.
At the same time, I remember while you were talking, I was trying to remember where I saw it, but I'm pretty sure that we have confirmation that at some point in the development of 1.0, that they had only 3 colors. And then during the playtesting cycles and during the development of the game, they decided that the game needed a 4th color, and that's when black was added. So the original concept for Artifact 1.0 with Garfield had 3 colors, and they felt like there was not enough kind of variety or so. I don't remember the exact reasons, nor do I remember where I've seen this, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading that. So it might just be a matter of balancing reasons. What I will say, though, that I think is also something that we've said on a few episodes back is black should really be purple, right? They released Void Spirit now, so like purple is kind of the 4th color of Dota, if you will. So it kind of would make more sense to kind of remove black altogether and make black purple. But at the same time, then they would have to add the purple heroes. So I don't know how that would mess with the whole scheme of things. But at least from a lore perspective, from an overall like design and interlacing with Dota 2, I feel like getting rid of black and getting purple in would make more sense. So.
Well, if you do that, you gotta change heroes like God, no, what's the name of the guy that does the spiky ball? I forgot.
Oh, yeah, Darkseer, yeah. Darkseer would be a purple hero, yeah.
Yeah, Darkseer would be a purple hero if you go that way.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense. It's not like...
But they made him green. Why not black? If you want to put stuff purple be black, why not black? I don't know. That's just...
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these heroes that probably could have gone in both colors. The same way that Rix probably could have gone into black as well. Who knows? But yeah, we'll leave it in the air. Next up is a creep that also made me raise my eyebrows, let's put it like that. Sticky Grivel is the 1-mana 1/1. First time ever, by the way, in Artifact. We don't have any 1-mana creeps, so that's a new one. Sticky Grivel's combat target has rooted. So rooted in Dota means the rooted target is not able to TP out and is not able to move. So like you're just stuck to the ground. I believe you can still play spells, but the rooted will interrupt channeled abilities and stuff like that in Dota. So not exactly clear what the rooted means. They don't exactly say what it is, but it feels like it prevents the opponent from TPing out or blinking out or doing any of those things.
Or changing like Mirana does and
exactly.
into another.
Exactly. Now, the main thing for me with this creep, though, is costing 1.
Well, have you thought of the counterplay? You know, when people like put a blink dagger on a hero and then you just stick a Grivel in front of it and you can just go like, screw you.
Yeah, I think this little guy will have a lot of utility in that sense, because denying blinks is often huge, at least in the way the game is right now. And also, given that we now have seen Mirana, it's pretty cool. What does, to me, raise some concerns? I mean, again, this is all questionable, but the fact that we have a 1-mana creep also might mean that they are pushing the mana costs down. And so it makes me again wonder, are they scaling down the mana of the towers as well? Are we starting now from 1 mana on turn 1? Or is it still round 1, 3 mana? Because if they go down to 1 mana, I feel like this affects the game really hugely, really massively. The difference between
the concept was good. I don't feel like that's something that they need to change.
Yeah, I also do. I mean, this is something that I really feel passionately about. I think they should not change this, because getting spells from turn 1 to turn 2 to turn 3, the difference in gain per round is very big. So it's much, much harder to balance. And you see that in games like Magic, Hearthstone, where you have to curve, because the difference between 1-mana spells, 2-mana spells, 3-mana spells is much higher than the difference between a 3-mana spell and a 4-mana spell, right? Because it's just a 25% increase rather than 100%, etc. increase.
So, yeah, and it opens for you to be able to play something on the first turn. Other games that kind of, if you only have 1 mana at the first turn, it kind of screws you a lot, because you probably have like 4 cards tops in your deck that cost 1 mana if you're playing like Magic or Lolter, whatever it's called. Runeterra and all them fucking bitches about it. And the Artifact always had this cool thing where when you started playing, it would be almost impossible to not have a card in your hand that you'd be able to play in one of the lanes. And if you scale down mana to 1, that's going to be really, really bad. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's certainly, I think, one of the points to keep in mind in these notes. Yeah, then they show us a couple of blue creeps. I don't want to go too much into them, but basically, I think the main thing to take from these two is that they show this 5-mana creep, blue creep, who's a 4/5. So 4/5. This is actually the stats that exist in a current black creep, 5-mana 4/5. I don't remember the name. It's the blue creep, the black creep that can change his arrow. But they say this is one of the few blue creeps with a big stat line. It is odd to me that they showed 2 blue creeps and both of them have 5 HP at 4 and 5 mana, because we just saw Wraith King and Mirana with 3 and 4 HP. So that feels kind of weird to me. I wonder if they are making blue heroes and blue creeps tankier, but they don't say it, so it just raises that question to me. Also, the one thing this defenestrating ogre has is a play effect, bounce the enemy, blocking defenestrating ogre. So I think this is also the first time that we see a bounce effect.
That card's going to be so good in draft.
In draft, for sure, and I mean, I think this would have applications in constructed as well. Because my question is, what happens to the items? Do the items get, like, if a hero gets bounced with items, does he get bounced with the items to his hand? So again, this raises more questions. But it's interesting. I mean, they're exploring a game space that hasn't been explored yet, because
you're not reading it well. Bouncing returns the hero to be deployed next round, so it goes to the fountain. If it's a creep, it goes to your hand. So creeps go to your hand, and heroes get to the fountain.
Okay.
So items will just keep on the hero.
All right. I already read this thing 4 times, and somehow I forgot about that. All right, but good to know. In any case, in that case, I assume that the items are coming with the hero to the fountain as they do when they die.
So, for example, this card, in my opinion, if they're gonna keep rarities and stuff, it has to be. This would have to be like rare, because if it's like a chunky boy, and it bounces back something, it like in constructed, for example, you'll have like possible plays to do against something like this. It's gonna set you back, but you'll still have enough cards in your hand to make an answer to this. Yeah. But if you're playing draft and you bounce a hero with a 4/5, that's gonna be huge. And if you're gonna open these in drafts as commons, it's if you have like 3 of these, it's gonna be insane.
And the funny thing is that last week they said that they wanted to avoid players getting locked out of lanes or getting locked out of the game. But now we see a creep that bounces a hero away, so that could potentially block a play in a lane. And then the last card that they show, the sheepstick, also hexes an enemy for 2 rounds. So, you know, in one hand they say that they want to make the game more approachable and that they want people to be less kind of denied, but then we are seeing deny cards, so that probably means that we're going to see a lot more mobility cards, so that people can jump from lane to lane and keep playing spells despite all these things. The other point I wanted to make, and I forgot when we talked about the descaling, is gold. So we see sheepstick at the end of the post costing 25 gold. So basically Horn of the Alpha type thing. So I wonder if the gold rewards are going to stay the same, or if they're going to scale or change that down at all. And once more, sheepstick also costs 1 mana to activate. That's also something we have not really seen before. And also
you notice how it's a one-time thing.
There's a consumable.
Yeah, because it's not a sword, a shield, or a heart, so it tells me it's a one-time thing.
what I think or what it seems to suggest is that maybe there's a consumable. Either that's a wrong logo on the card, or there's a consumable slot on the heroes now. Because it could be that besides the power, armor, and HP thing, now they have like an accessory slot. You know what I mean?
So you get to equip like a potion or
I don't
a charm
know.
portal, and you only use it when you want.
I don't know. It would be weird for sheepstick to be a consumable item. It costs 25 gold, and I don't know. At the same time, it gives you +5 power. So I wonder if it's a power item. You know what I mean? I don't know what to make of that little.
Either
potion
that, or
symbol.
they just use the wrong model for the card, and they're just playing mind games with us.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact is like JC Orion is saying, it wouldn't make sense for it to be consumable because there's a cooldown on the ability. But it is strange to see the consumable symbol up there, or at least I'm presuming that's the consumable symbol. So unless they have reworked the shop completely, as a lot of people wanted, and maybe now that symbol is just the symbol of random shop item, I don't know. It could just signify that it's an item,
Yeah.
or it could just be like purely a mistake. I'm not sure.
We'll have to wait and see. They might have used like that model card, and it has that symbol, but it doesn't apply because it looks like an attack item.
Yeah, Captain P is saying it's possible it requires 1 mana to equip. Quite possible, yeah. For all we know, it's possible. Would be weird now that you would have to spend 25 gold and then pay mana to equip an item, though, right? Wouldn't that be strange?
Well, it kind of.
Or
It looks broken as hell, so it should cost even more mana to be played after you pay 25.
now that what's coming to what just suddenly came in my mind also is that some people have said that they will potentially limit the number of actions that you have per round. And while I think personally that's probably a really bad idea, maybe what the one up there means is that it consumes one of your actions. I don't know.
I wouldn't. I don't see it that way, and that's like a very limiting mechanic. I mean, you got decks where you buy like half of your deck by mid game, and you get sometimes you got like 20 cards in your hand, and being able only to play like 3 cards per lane, if something like that, that's very limited.
I'm just saying there have been rumors and speculations that they would do that, so I wonder if that's what the one relates to, because it is weird to just have a random one and then kind of an accessory symbol up there.
Can you imagine if it's like an equipment in Magic where you can equip and pay 1 mana and equip someone else?
Oh, okay, but in Dota that doesn't happen though.
I know.
Okay. I mean, pure speculation.
I know.
But it's interesting to talk about the potential possibility, I think. So all in all, I think a lot of new information. I don't think we went through all single little details, but I think that's the thick of it. By the time this comes out, all of you have anyway read it and probably discussed it with other people if you're interested enough to do that. Otherwise, yeah, just head on to playartifact.com and have a look at that. I don't know if there's any other specific point that you want to talk about.
No, just I'm just curious. And the last card we were talking about that says that they're stunned and look like a sheep for 2 rounds. I'm curious if it's going to affect their stats or just ridicularize the card and turn it into a sheep, or if it's going to be like a 4/4 or 2/2 or something like that. Because when it turns into a sheep, does it stop considering the items it has? Is it not? I don't know. It would be. I would rather they, for example, you disable all items for 1 turn on a character than turn him into a sheep for 2 rounds.
I think in Dota it's complicated. I think in Dota the way it works is like the HP items and stuff still work, so you don't lose HP, but otherwise you lose all buffs and auras and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I would assume the HP remains the same, but you lose all abilities, and you lose. Well, I mean, Tough to say.
We can only speculate.
In other games, generally, when you transform units into sheeps or frogs or something, they become really tiny, right? But I don't know. It says it looks like a sheep. It doesn't mean becomes a sheep. So maybe it just looks like a sheep and is stunned, implying that all the items and things would still be in effect. Interesting, though, yeah.
Still a 2-turn, because if you look at it, you activate it and it has a 2-turn cooldown. And the characters, this is going to allow for stun locks. Yeah. If you keep on that lane stunning that character, it's a stun lock.
Yeah, it's a pretty good item, but it does cost 25, and most other 25 gold items we've seen in the game normally are game-ending items. So yeah, it does make sense to me, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's it from the post side. There is also something special that me and Carrie wanted to mention to you guys just to end this week's episode. God knows if there will be more announcements next week or not. It would be cool to keep doing this every week, but we'll see. I would be surprised if they keep doing this every week, but hopefully they do. Let's see. I wanted to say that I tried to get in contact with Richard Garfield following our interview, which was basically a year ago, and I wanted to know how he was doing, if there was any involvement from him on the artifact side, and he was kind enough to answer back. So I wanted to let you guys know basically what he told me, because I asked if he was still at all involved in the game. Obviously, we know he was kind of let go in the sense that this contract was over and his job was kind of done, and they let him go. And basically, not to paraphrase or not to quote exactly what it says, but he says he's not officially involved with the game, but he's still in contact with the developers and the people who are developing the new version of the game, and that he is aware of what changes are going to be made, so he knows what's going to be made. And he has in fact been invited to test the game and give feedback on the game. This is something that he has already done. Otherwise, yeah, he says he's looking forward to see what the end product will be. So obviously, not even Valve knows yet what the end product will be. But so basically, this is to say that Garfield has, if nothing else, been informed and is a beta tester, let's put it like that, or an alpha tester. I guess we're still at an alpha stage probably at this point.
Meaning, if you guys get beta keys, who knows, you might be paired against him.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy your miserable lives.
You can, if you get an early beta key, you can try to get matched against Garfield. All right, so I think that's us for this week, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be editing the audio and pushing it hopefully out tomorrow, as well as on YouTube. So if you enjoy the cast and if you enjoy our content, would be super happy if you would follow us, leave a review on YouTube or on our podcast, on your podcast app or platform. And otherwise, yeah, hopefully we'll see you again next week for another preview of some other cards. But who knows? Let's see.
Bye-bye.
Bye.